verb conjugations in Spanish. If you're here, I'm going to assume you're a complete beginner to Spanish, or you're very confused and you're beating your head against a wall and you're wondering, how the fuck do I conjugate these things in Spanish? They're so complicated. Well, I'm here to make it easy for you. It's not very complicated at all, if you follow the right patterns and if you know what you're doing. So, verbs in Spanish. First of all, let's start off. What is a verb? Simply speaking, a verb is an action word, right? So, breathing, running. Well, let me give you the infinitive. To run, to speak, to walk, to eat, etc. In Spanish, we have the same type of deal. Hablar, comer, vivir, etc., etc., etc. But you might have heard that there wasn't something following the infinitive like there is in English, like to something, right? To eat, to speak, to walk, etc. So, let's just start like this. So, verbs in Spanish pretty much only end one of three ways. They end in AR, ER, or IR, right? So, if the word you're looking at in the infinitive form ends in one of these three, chances are it's a verb. Chances are it's an action word, okay? In English, let's just start with something simple. To speak. Or its Spanish equivalent, hablar. Right? These mean the same thing. One is obviously in English, one's in Spanish. To speak, hablar. So, when matched with different pronouns in English, you would say, I speak. For example, I speak English, I speak Spanish. You speak English, you speak Spanish, you speak quickly, you speak slowly, etc., etc. When it goes to the third person singular, it starts to get a little more complicated. Not really, though. He, she, it speaks. Out of all of them that you're going to see, this is pretty much the only one that's different in English, right? We speak, you all speak, you guys speak, y'all, how they'd say it in the South, speak. It's not grammatically correct, but, you know, gives you the idea. The reason I bring this up, you'll see here in a second. And then they speak, right? Very easy, right? They're pretty much all speak, besides the third person singular, which would be speaks, right? He speaks Spanish, she speaks Spanish, right? Etc., etc. Okay, so in Spanish, things are a little more complicated. But once you get the pattern down, these pretty much apply to almost everything. It's crazy. It's great. So, like how in English we have I, you, he, she, it, we, they, etc., right? In Spanish, we have yo, which means I, right? Again, the infinitive, hablar, right? This ends in AR. Remember, guys, verbs in Spanish either end in AR, ER, or IR, right? So, hablar, we use it all the time. Yo hablo español, yo hablo con mi madre, yo hablo con mis tíos, yo hablo con mis amigos, etc., etc., which brings us to yo hablo. Oh my God, the ending changed. What do I do? It's okay, relax, we're getting there. I'll explain it in a second. Tú hablas. So right away we're seeing that the endings of the words are changing, right? It's okay. So these two, you're going to use them a lot, especially if you're having a one-to-one conversation with someone, right? Back and forth. Unless you're speaking about someone else, which we'll get to in a second, you're going to use these more than anything else, right? Oh, so if I ask you, ¿hablas español? ¿Hablas inglés? Do you speak Spanish? Do you speak English? Etc., etc. You'd answer, sí, yo hablo español, yo hablo inglés, etc., etc. Get to third person singular. Él, ella, habla. So, Spanish is also a gendered language, right? Which you will see once we get into adjectives and stuff like that. So, every single word, well, everything in Spanish is either masculine or feminine, right? So, for example, in English, if we're talking about a couch, we would say the couch. If we're talking about a car, we would say the car. If we were talking about, let's say, the sun, we would say the sun. If we're talking about the moon, we'd be talking about, the moon. In Spanish, not trying to get derailed here, but since everything's split into masculine and feminine, it would be like the car, el coche, right? The moon, la luna, right? Masculine, feminine. So here, we also have usted. And this word follows the same pattern as he and she, right? Third person singular, but this actually means you. Okay? This is informal. This is how you'd speak with a buddy of yours, right? Some friends, etc. Usted, that's if you want to be more formal, if you're speaking to like your boss or something like that, right? Or let's say you're like a waiter at a restaurant and you're serving some clients, right? You'd be like, ¿usted quiere agua? ¿Usted desea algo de beber? You're trying to be formal, you're trying to be polite, and all that good stuff. So, nosotros, that's how you'd say we in Spanish, right? Nosotros hablamos. Right? Amos. So let's say you're speaking generally about a group of people and you're including yourself, right? So if we would say, en España hablamos español, in Spain we speak Spanish, right? En Estados Unidos hablamos inglés, in the United States we speak English, etc., etc. Vosotros. Now this one, it's not used in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries. Here in Spain, it absolutely is, right? My style of Spanish is Castilian Spanish, right? Because I'm Spanish and American, 50-50. So that's why I know both languages so well. Vosotros is how, in the South, they'd say y'all, right? It's not really something you'd say in English 9 times out of 10, but the reason I'm including it in this chart is because in Castilian Spanish, at least, we do have this y'all form, right? Vosotros. Habláis. Right. And then they have ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Hablan. So, you have they, right? Ellos, ellas, masculine, feminine. And then ustedes would be the y'all, you guys, but formal. You're going to use this one a lot more if you're learning like South American Spanish. Or, you're speaking to a large group of people in a formal setting. You'd use this. If you're in Spain, you're going to use this one. If you're speaking to buddies, friends, colleagues, etc. A lot more. So, if you didn't get all that, you can rewind in the video. But there's a point I'm trying to get with this, right? So right now, your head might be exploded. Oh my God, there's like forms for all of these words, and what do? I have to memorize every single verb? Relax. Not quite. When we get into irregular verbs and stuff, yeah, you're gonna have to memorize those a little bit differently, but let's just go back to hablar, right? In Spanish, we have different modes, different tenses, depending on the modes, etc. Right now, we're just gonna keep it simple. I'm not gonna overcomplicate the grammar. Right now, we're just gonna focus on past, present, and future. We're gonna start with present, and then we're gonna go to past, and then future. Just to simplify this, if you're just trying to start off and learn, just focus on these for now, and then we'll get into more complicated stuff as time goes on. But let's just go back to hablar, right? Hablar ends in AR, okay? So, a way you can think about all these verbs, they're like Lego blocks. I'm assuming you guys know what Legos are, right? If you've ever played with Legos as a kid or whatever, they're these little building blocks that you can stack on top of each other, right? To build things. You can think about these words like building blocks as well. So, you can separate the root of the word, habl, right? Hablar, right? And then it would end in AR, right? This would be the infinitive. This would be the part of the Lego block that you'd take off of the word, and then you'd plug and play all the rest of the tenses. Does that make sense? So, if I want to say, I speak, yo hablo, right? We'd have the beginning of that word, and we just add an O to the end. Hablo. You'd take this off, plug this in, right? Tú hablas. See where I'm going with this, right? So hablas, hablo, hablar, okay? Right now I'm just gonna keep it simple instead of including all of them again. Él, you can say ella, usted as well. Habla. Right, so we're just taking off the AR and slapping these endings on there. Habla. Nosotros, that's how you say we, and generally speaking, if you're speaking one-on-one to someone, you're not going to use it as often, right? But, you know, if you're speaking with a large group of people, you're going to use these next few quite a bit more. Hablamos. So you have that beginning again, right? And we have the amos. So, hablamos, right? Hablamos español. We speak Spanish. Okay. Vosotros habláis. And then ellos hablan. So, you see the endings, ais, an, hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. Okay. So these would be the endings in present tense for AR verbs. So, good news about this, you don't have to memorize every single AR verb in Spanish. It's like, oh my God, how do I conjugate all these, right? Because these patterns, generally speaking, I mean, we're not talking about irregular verbs yet. Those exist in English as well, especially if you know the verb to be. That can confuse a lot of Spanish speakers wanting to learn English as well. So, let's just go back to hablar, to speak, and then go to another AR word, trabajar, right? You see how both of these end in AR? right? So, hablar. If I wanted to say I speak, you would just say yo hablo. Okay? If you want to say I work, you would say yo trabajo. Oh my God, what's going on? Well, like I explained earlier, right? The words are Lego blocks. Trabajar, hablar. You take the AR off, right? And then you slap on those endings that we just told you about. And this will work with most regular verbs in Spanish if you're just trying to talk in the present tense. Okay, does that make sense? So, you can extrapolate this to any other AR word, right? So, comprar. How would you say, for example, I buy, right? Because comprar means to buy, right? If hablar is to hablo, comprar is to, give you a few seconds to see if you can figure it out. Comprar is to compro. See that? You take the AR, you tack it off, and then you put the correct ending for whatever verb tense you want to use, right? If you want to say I buy, yo compro. One thing you're going to notice very quickly, especially when you start speaking to someone else in day-to-day conversation, they might say, for example, trabajo en bla 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 bla, como trabajo en el hospital, trabajo en la escuela, trabajo en la biblioteca, trabajo en el supermercado, you know. It's like, oh my God, I didn't hear that yo at the beginning. That's because when we're speaking in Spanish, you can think about it like a bread in an oven, right? The pronoun is kind of baked into the verb, so to speak, right? So if I want to say, I work, right? You can say either yo trabajo, or you can just say trabajo. The yo is implied, right? You don't need to put it on there at the beginning because it's baked into the verb. And this goes for any other verb in Spanish, right? So you don't necessarily need to put the pronoun in front because it's already baked in. Let's just use another AR verb before we continue. Escuchar. Which means to listen. Okay. So for example, if I want to say, I listen to Pink Floyd, you would say, escucho Pink Floyd. For example, right? If you want to say, I listen to rock and roll, escucho rock and roll. For example. If I want to say, I listen to music, escucho música. You don't need to put that yo at the beginning because it's already baked into the verb. Okay, now you might be thinking, okay, kind of see where you're going with this, Joshua. So does this work with every single verb in existence? No, there are exceptions, right? Like the verb ser, estar, which means to be, both of them, but different senses of being. We'll get into that in the future in another video. For now, we're just going to focus on the present tense for all the verbs. Next, we're going to go over ER and then IR, right? If you want to review the AR stuff again, just rewind into the video, right? The same principles that you saw with hablar are going to work with other AR verbs like bailar, limpiar. You know, bailar means to dance, limpiar means to clean, right? All of those are going to work with those patterns. So, again, verbs in Spanish and in AR, which we just covered, ER or IR. Next, we're going to go over ER. The endings for ER and IR are a lot more similar than the AR one, as you will see here for a bunch of them in the near future. So let's go with everybody's favorite word, comer. What does comer mean? It means to eat. Everybody loves to eat, right? You know, there's nothing quite like a good burger, right? Good pasta. Here in Spain, we have this amazing food called tortilla de patata, which is just like a pretty big potato omelet. It's the best way I can describe it. But anyways, comer, to eat. So just like the AR verbs, and again, we're just gonna simplify present tense, past tense, future tense, right? There are different kinds of present tenses, different kinds of past tenses, but for now, we're just gonna keep it simple, okay? This is pretty much, if you wanna, speak down and dirty, right? You're just starting out, just focus on this for now, and then we can tack on some extra stuff afterwards. So, comer, to eat, right? In English, you already know. I eat, you eat, he eats, she eats, we eat, they eat, etc., etc. In Spanish, you already know. All of these are going to have different endings. So I eat, yo, again, yo is I, right? Yo como. Okay, so if I want to say I eat meat, yo como carne, or just como carne. If I want to say I eat vegetables, yo como verduras, right? If you want to say I eat pasta, yo como pasta, right? Tú, you, informal, right? Talking right at you, right? Tú comes. Como comes. Okay. Él, ella, usted would be the next one. To simplify, we're just going to put he, which is él. Come. Nosotros. We eat. Nosotros comemos. That's an E, by the way. Comemos. Vosotros coméis. And ellos. Again, this is the masculine form of they. Ellos. That doesn't have an accent, excuse me. Comen. So, you see the endings, right? And again, any regular verb that ends in ER, generally speaking, is going to be able to follow this same pattern. So, for example, comer, to eat. Yo como. I eat. Okay? Let's take another ER verb. Let's say leer. Leer means to read, right? It's another ER verb. So for example, if you like to read books, me gusta, which means I like, leer libros. Right? I like to read books. This is a reflexive I, right? It's like my in English, but not quite. Me gusta leer libros. I like to read books. Okay? So if I want to say I read books, yo leo libros. Or you could just get rid of the yo altogether and just say leo libros. Right? If you want to say you read books, lees libros. Okay? So again, we're just like the Lego example earlier. Leer. You take off the ER and then you slap on the correct ending. And this same pattern is going to work for all regular verbs. Okay? But what about the exceptions, Joshua? Well, the exceptions are exceptions for a reason, right? Even in English, the verb to be doesn't follow the same example as everything else, like to read. I read, you read, he reads, she reads. English, I am for to be. You are, he is, she is, it is, we are, they are. It's a little bit different. But if we're talking about just regular verbs, these are all going to follow the same pattern. So it's important for you to know these endings. The reason it's important for you to know these endings is because let's say you're on the street listening to someone speak in Spanish, right? You might not know what word they're saying, but if you know the ending, you at least know that they're saying I something or we something or you something, right? You can kind of get the context because it's baked into the verb. You can kind of figure out, okay, I don't know exactly what this person just said, but I know this person said we something, 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 right? And then let's go to IR. Vivir, very common word. Vivir. All vivir means is to live. So for example, if I want to say I live in Spain, we would say yo vivo en España. I live in Spain, yo vivo en España. Yo vivo en América, I live in America. Yo vivo en Francia, I live in France. And extrapolate this to anything else you want to say. So these are going to be very similar to the ER verbs you just saw earlier. Patterns are very similar. So if I want to say I live, yo, which is I, vivo, yo vivo, I live. Tú vives, you live, right? So if someone were to ask you, vives en Ohio, vives en Texas, vives en California, vives en Nebraska, for example, right? Do you live in Ohio? Do you live in Texas? Do you live in California? Do you live in Nebraska? Right? A lot of the times when they're asking you a question, they're gonna leave the you out, and then they're just gonna straight up ask you, do you live in blah, 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 blah? Do you live in XYZ place? Vives en Nebraska? Vives en Iowa? Vives en Colorado? Vives en Nueva York? All right? Él vive. He lives. She lives. Right? You formal live. Usted vive. You know. Nosotros vivimos. Vosotros vivís. Ellos viven. That's an N, by the way. Okay, so by now you're like, okay, I only got to memorize these endings once, right? Yes. Again, for regular verbs, absolutely. These are all going to follow the same pattern. Again, there are different modes in Spanish, different ways to say the present tense, so we'll get that in future lessons. But for now, we're just going to keep it simple. You might hear some different stuff in day-to-day conversation, but generally speaking, just worry about this for now. You'll thank me later. So, let's go back to vivir, to live. What's another good IR word? Let's go abrir, to open. Okay, these both end in IR. Okay, so if vivo is I live, what is I open? Give you a couple seconds to figure it out. Yo abro. I open, right? So if I'm opening a door, yo abro la puerta. I open the door. Yo abro la nevera. I open the fridge, etc., etc. Let's figure out another IR word. Escribir. To write. Okay. So, again, let's try this again. Vivo means I live. Yo vivo. All right. What would I write be? Yo escribo. Right? Because you have that beginning part of the word again, escrib. Take off the IR, you tack on the ending of the verb, escribo. Right? Yo escribo. Okay. Let's try that again with escribir. Means to write. So, vives, you live. What would you write mean? What would that be? Tú, you got it down? All right, tú escribes. You see I have that beginning part of the word that's still the same. You just tack on the right ending. For all of these verbs that end in AR, ER, or IR, and they're regular verbs, which are most verbs, that's why they're regular, they're going to be able to follow this same pattern. So next time you're listening to Spanish, keep that in mind. Because you might not know what the word is, but you know that they're saying I something something, you something something, we something something, etc. And you know it's an action. So then if you know some other words, you can plug the context of the situation in. And even if you don't know the word, you can kind of start putting the pieces together. You know what I mean? All right. So that was the present tense, right? Again, we're just keeping it simple for today. So let's go over some past tense with the same words. Hablar. Right? So, hablar means to speak. Okay? In English, we have the past tense as well. We have a few past tenses: past simple, past participle, etc., etc. Right now, we're just going to keep it simple. If I want to say the past of speak, I spoke. Right? You spoke. He, she, it spoke. He spoke to me yesterday. She spoke to me yesterday. We spoke. They spoke. Oh my God, this is so simple. It's all the same in English. And then we'd have the you guys, the y'all, the vosotros form, spoke. They'd all be the same for this specific verb. So in English, it's kind of simple. In Spanish, you're gonna have to memorize this a little bit, right? So, if I want to say I spoke in Spanish, right? Yo hablé. Say I spoke to my brother yesterday. I'm sorry, I spoke with my brother yesterday. Yo hablé con mi hermano ayer. I spoke with my brother yesterday. I want to say I spoke to my boss yesterday. Hablé con mi jefe ayer. Or ayer hablé con mi jefe. You could say either or. Right? You spoke. Tú hablaste. Right? You notice it's the same type of Lego blocks. You have the same first part of the word, right? You take off the AR and then you tack on the correct Lego piece onto the end of it, right? Yo hablé, hablar becomes hablé, hablar becomes hablaste, tú hablaste, right? So if you were saying, did you speak with your sister yesterday? Hablaste con tu hermana ayer? See what I'm doing? Haste, that's the past of you, right? Singular. Él habló. Sounds very, very similar to present tense, first person I, right? Hablo, habló. They're different. I speak present tense, yo hablo, right? You can almost think where you put the emphasis on the word. So hablo, hablo, the first syllable has the emphasis hablo, right? And he spoke, habló. You're gonna see a lot of words in Spanish that have this little accent. It's called a tilde, right? It shows you where the emphasis of, is supposed to go on each word. So él habló, he spoke, right? So again, the root of the word stays the same. Like in the Lego example earlier, you tack it off, you put it back on. So let's just finish this off. Nosotros hablamos. But Joshua, isn't that the present tense? Yes, it is. But it also works for the past tense for the AR verbs. So this present and past tense is going to be the same. Hoy hablamos, right? Today we speak. Ayer hablamos. Yesterday we spoke. It's going to be the same. O hablamos más tarde. We'll speak later. Vosotros, excuse me, hablasteis. Anytime hasteis. Anytime you see that EIS ending or EIS, it's like ace in English, right? That's how it's pronounced, ace. Hablasteis, right? So let's say you're playing poker, you got an ace. You got pocket aces. Hablasteis, right? EIS, ace. Ellos hablaron. So, hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. So, I spoke, yo hablé. You spoke, tú hablaste. He spoke, él habló. Nosotros hablamos, vosotros hablasteis, ellos hablaron. Etc., etc. So you see these? Well, in the final video, I don't know if this is going to show up or not. Next time, I will make sure that I know exactly where it cuts off on the camera. Okay, so same thing from earlier, right? Past tense. Let's go with hablar again. To speak. You know that by now. Let's see. Let's do a different AR verb. Visitar. It's another AR, right? Visitar means to visit. So if you want to say, I'm going to visit my family, voy a visitar mi familia. That's how you'd use visitar in the infinitive. Visitar, to visit. So, if hablé is I spoke, what would I visited be? I visited, you visited, he visited, she visited, right? Past tense, I visited. Visité. Ayer visité mi familia. Yesterday I visited my family, right? Ayer visité Francia, for example. If yesterday I visited France. Let's say, yesterday I visited my friend. Ayer visité mi amigo. Or ayer visité mi amiga, right? Because again, masculine, feminine. We'll get into that in the future. Hablé, visité. So like you're starting to see, all of these follow the same pattern. So you get any regular verb, if you can memorize the ending, and this is going to take you actually speaking it as well, like speaking it with yourself, flashcards, etc. Those can help if you don't have someone to speak to. It can definitely be helpful. By the way, if you're struggling to learn Spanish and you'd like to become conversational in 3 months, there's going to be a link in the description to work with me one-on-one. I'd be happy to help you. Anyways, let's continue on to ER and IR verbs. So, let's go back to comer. What does comer mean? To eat. Right? not gonna bother writing these down in English. Pretty sure you already know what they are. I ate, you ate, he ate, she ate, we ate. Yesterday we ate pasta, we ate pizza, right? So I ate would be yo comí. I ate. Tú comiste. Él comió. Nosotros comimos. Vosotros comisteis. Ellos comieron. So, again, plug and play. Hope you're starting to see, oh my God, this works for everything. Yes, not everything, but again, we'll do irregular verbs in a separate video. But for now, this is what you need to know. And I highly, highly, highly recommend you learn these conjugations sooner rather than later. You're gonna save yourself months, if not years of headache that way. All right, so comer, to eat. What's another? Vender means to sell. All right. So let's say you're working at a fruit stand, right? You're selling fruits. Ayer vendí 3 manzanas, right? Yesterday I sold 3 apples. Say you're working at a game store, right? Ayer vendí 2 consolas. Yesterday I sold 2 consoles. So if comí is I ate, what would I sold be? I sold. What do you think it is? Remember the Legos? Take off the ER. Vendí. It's the same thing, guys. It's the same pattern. Over and over and over again. Let's use a different one. Aprender. Aprender. Aprender means to learn. That's the infinitive, to learn. So if you want to say, I want to learn Spanish, I want would be quiero, right? It's another ER verb, querer. But that's an irregular. With a little bit of a root change. But again, we'll get into those in the future. Yo quiero aprender español. I want to learn Spanish. So, comer. Yo comí. Comer is to comí. What aprender is to, drum roll please, aprendí. I learned. Ayer aprendí, no sé, cómo grabar. Yesterday, I learned how to record. Not literally, but. Example. We ate. Comimos. We ate. What would we learned be? Aprendimos. Comimos pasta, aprendimos español. So I hope you're seeing the root stays the same. You take it off, you put on the Lego block. Okay, last one that we're gonna do in the past. What does vivir mean? To live. Okay. In English, I lived, you lived, he lived, she lived, we lived, they lived. It's all the same. Spanish, yo viví. I lived. Wait a minute, but isn't that the same ending from the ER? Yes, it is. ER and IR are a lot more similar than the AR is to the rest of them. There are differences between ER and IR, but out of all of them, those two are the most similar. Tú viviste. Él vivió. Nosotros vivimos. Vosotros vivisteis. Ellos vivieron. Viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron. Again, guys, you take off the IR, you slap on the correct ending. Let you look at that real quick. All right. We're gonna go through this a little quicker now. Vivir, right? What's another word? Another regular. We already did those. Let's try this one out. Decidir. To decide. So again, all of these are the infinitive forms, okay? Decidir, to decide, right? Vivir, to live. If I lived is yo viví. What is I decided? Yo decidí. I decided. Okay. All right. What about we lived? Nosotros vivimos. Again, past tense and present tense for IR are the same for the we form. We lived, nosotros vivimos. We lived, nosotros vivimos. A lot of the stuff, as you'll figure out in Spanish, kind of depends on the context of the sentence. But again, we'll go over that in a future video. So if vivir is to vivimos, decidir is to, thank you, decidimos. You have that imos ending. You put on the correct Lego block. Boom, etc., etc. They lived. Ellos vivieron. What was they decided? Right? They decided to buy a house. Decidieron comprar una casa. They decided to buy a house. Decidieron And again, guys, the faster you learn how to conjugate these, you're gonna save yourself so much headache. Because anytime you hear these endings, if you're speaking to someone, you're out on the street, you go travel to another country, this is gonna, save you hours, days, years. Because you're gonna be like, oh my God, thank God. I don't know what they said, but I'm kind of following along. And again, especially if you're starting out, right? So, last one, future. Now this one is very, 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 very simple because it works the same for all of them. AR, ER, IR. Follow the same pattern. Okay, doesn't matter. AR, ER, IR. All follow the same pattern for this one. But how is that the case, Joshua? Why do they follow the same pattern? Don't you have to take something off and put something on? Not quite, not with this one. With this one, you take the infinitive, let's say hablar. Remember how I said these were Lego blocks, right? Habl, ar. With all of these, they all follow the same pattern. It doesn't matter if it's ER, AR, or IR, right? This is already two Lego blocks put together. So for the future tense, you take the infinitive and then you slap an extra Lego block to the end of the infinitive. That's it. It works for all infinitives. Again, for regular verbs. I'm gonna specify that because someone in the comments is gonna be like, well, here I found an exception, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I know. There are exceptions to everything, right? Especially if we get into irregulars. Ser, estar, etc., etc. Two of the most common. To be. Again, that's going to be a separate video. Those two, the verb to be in English is pretty much split into two verbs. Three, technically, for certain things, right? But we're getting off topic again. Anyways. Everyone's favorite chart. So, hablar, to speak. If you want to say, I will speak, yo hablaré, right? So we have the infinitive, right? And then you just slap an E at the end of there with a little, not exclamation, with the little tilde, the little accent. That's where you put the emphasis, right? You don't want to put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. You know what I'm saying? You want to put the right emphasis on the right syllable. So yo hablaré, I will speak. Tú hablarás. So you see right here, it's the infinitive, and then you just tack on that extra Lego block to the end, right? Él hablará. So guys, remember, you see the infinitive here for future tense, you just slap that extra Lego block at the end. Nosotros hablaremos Vosotros hablaréis ellos hablarán. See, all of these have the infinitive with the Lego block attached. That's the easiest way to remember it. And like I said, these same endings will work for all the rest of the regular verbs. Doesn't matter. Here, I will show you. So, hablar, comer, vivir. Right? To speak, to eat, to live. Okay? So again, I will speak, yo hablaré. See? Just highlighting the same ending. Hablar, the infinitive e, extra Lego block. Comer, to eat. E, right? Comeré. I will eat. Vivir. Viviré. See? They all share the same ending. Hablaré, comeré, viviré. I will speak, I will eat, I will live. So if you want to say, I will eat pasta today, you know? Like, I'm gonna eat it no matter what. It's gonna happen, guys. Comeré pasta. Right? You will speak. Hablarás. Comerás. Vivirás. It's the same freaking ending, guys. For future tense, it is as simple as it gets because it works for all of them. Works for all of them. And the best part about the future tense, those endings is like saying I will, whatever the infinitive is in English. So if you want to say I will live, viviré. I will eat, comeré. If you don't remember the endings for whatever reason and you want to say something in the future, there's a slightly different way that you can say it as well. The reason I'm including this is it's very simple. Voy a, which means I'm going to comer. You just have the infinitive. I'm going to eat. I'm going to speak. All right. I'm going to live. So if you don't remember the endings for the future tense, voy a, I'm going to, right? The big difference between I will and I'm going to. Like I'm going to is like saying it like, I'm gonna do it later. I'm gonna do it soon, whatever. If you say I will do something, it's like you're promising to do it. You're setting it in stone almost, right? But for whatever reason, if you don't remember the endings for the future tense, you can kind of cheat by voy a, blah, 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 blah. And is there anything else I want to include in this one? No, that's about it, guys. Like, thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And more videos coming out soon. Take care.